Hi there, everyone. This is Omid G, the coffee professor. Today we're going to talk about Geisha coffee. You probably heard about Geisha coffee beans before. They're something really special. They originated in Africa, and if you really notice, um, pretty much every type of coffee has a cultivar, or perhaps you haven't even researched, but for instance, it might be the Typica cultivar, which is a type of Arabica, or bourbon, or yellow bourbon, or pink bourbon, or Caturra, or Catucaí. There's all sorts of hundreds of different cultivars that you can find in coffee. Ethiopia, which to me is hands down, I have coffee from all over the world here. To me, Ethiopia is hands down the best coffee in the world. Um, all of their coffee is heirloom, and it's the birthplace of coffee. And so it's all wild. It's all from, hundreds, thousands of years ago, these varieties growing. And it's the only place in the world that the type of coffee you find is varies by region. So you go to the Sidamo region, it has a particular flavor. You go to Sidama, has a different flavor. Yirgacheffe has a different flavor, very floral in that case. If you go to Harar, it has more of a blueberry taste, and so forth. And so all the different regions have flavors, and so they don't even give them cultivar names. It's the only country in the world I can think of that doesn't. Like Kenya has SL28 and SL32, which are very, very famous cultivar names. Ethiopia doesn't do that. They do it by region. And so what happened at some point was that there was this region called Geisha, spelled Gesha. And somebody took beans out of Geisha and took them over to Panama. And then when they went and planted those beans, suddenly, by the time those plants started producing, the people who were doing the taste tests were all looking at each other in awe. Where did this coffee come from? Holy cow, this is unbelievable. It's so floral. And it started winning all the awards. It was instantly the best coffee on earth. All the blind test studies showed it. It was getting cupping ratings up to 96 on a 100-point scale. I mean, I never see above 93. It's so hard to find. And it made Ethiopia so angry that from then on, they banned the removal of undried beans from the country, because they didn't ever again want somebody to take beans from Ethiopia and then go and it's essentially you're taking Ethiopia's intellectual property. And so they banned that. If anybody gets beans from Ethiopia to grow, they're breaking the law. They're stealing intellectual property. The first thing I want you to note, if you can tell, I know I vacuum pack all my beans, but can you tell these are very long? They're long and skinny. And that's something that's very unique to the Geisha cultivar. The only other bean I've ever seen in the Arabica species that's long and skinny is this obscure variety from Honduras called Parainema. And Parainema genetically has nothing to do with Geisha, but amazingly, it carries a lot of floral flavors. I have that too. So this Geisha is now considered, and has been for a while, as the undisputed highest rated coffee on earth. It just is. Anybody who tries to tell you that the Kopi Luwak from Indonesia were the civet, and I've been to Indonesia to the coffee farms. I've watched those poor animals in cages being fed coffee cherries, and then they poop it out, and then they clean it, and then they roast it. That along with Hawaiian coffee is some of the most overrated coffee on earth. So don't let anybody tell you that's the best coffee on earth. There's no question that Geisha is the best coffee on earth. Now, I had said that it came from the region of Geisha, spelled Gesha. Somewhere along the line, this cultivar, it became a cultivar from a region to then a cultivar, got respelled to be like the Japanese geisha, Geisha. Some companies still spell it Gesha. They're both the same thing. What characterizes this coffee, aside from the way it looks being very different, is it tastes like a flower bouquet. And so that means you should never have geisha anything above light roast. If you like medium roast or dark roast, buy something else. Don't ruin this coffee. And so it's like buying a Ferrari and then hauling lumber with it. Haul your lumber with something else. Don't ask for or pursue or roast geisha to anything above light roast. What is that to me? To me, light roast means that from the pre-weight in green coffee beans to the post-weight has a weight loss from the coffee roasting process of between 13 and 13.3%. And that can go as low as 12.5 and as high as about 13.5. That's the range, but the desired is between 13 and 13.3%. That's if you ask me. With most beans that you're trying to capture these kind of flavors, you're going to hit them with a lot of heat to try and penetrate the density of the bean, because if a bean has got floral flavors or fruit flavors, it means it's got high acidity. It also means that it's very dense. It was probably grown at high elevations, which geisha always is. It was probably shade grown, which good geisha always is. All of these things, and it has a protracted, therefore, growing season. And then you have a very dense bean. However, geisha tends to be a little bit light inside. And so some people like to be a little bit more careful with it and treat it like they might treat a softer bean, like a Brazilian bean or something. How would you, now there's two basic types of geisha. There's wash process and not honey process, natural process. And in a nutshell, and I'll get into wash versus natural versus honey versus anaerobic and all that stuff in another video. But most of the geisha out there is wash process, and that basically means that they right away mechanically depulp the cherry and then set it out to dry. That gives you a very clean flavor, almost tea-like. And you'll have those very strong floral flavors coming through and that would be good for, pour over or filter or something like that. You could do espresso with that, but you just won't get the crema, to be honest. And crema is really important. I'll do another video on why crema is so important. Then there's natural process, and I've only seen those two processes for geisha. And then natural process, in a nutshell, is where the beans are dried in the cherry. Coffee is a fruit. And then the beans that we eat are in fact seeds, right? They're seeds. And so it's dried in that, and then that imparts flavors from the cherry onto the bean itself. And then what it also does is it lends a creaminess to it. So it tends to impart fruit flavors, but in the case of geisha, it does make it more floral. I'm not really tasting fruit in most cases. Like this is Panama natural process geisha. I have wash process also. Mine is from Guatemala. Now, the natural process will be a lot better for espresso. The caveat being it won't taste like any espresso you've ever had. So it's kind of, it's a question mark as to whether you would like it or not. Do you like an espresso, a latte that tastes like a bouquet of flowers? I kind of don't, and I love pretty much all sorts of coffees. I mean, for God's sakes, I've drank coffee that came out of an animal's butt in their poop. So that should tell you something. I'll try any kind of coffee. I'm not crazy about geisha lattes. It really, to me, I mean, it's overwhelming floral. You really should taste it. But to me, it's really you got to do pour over, you got to do filter, something like that. and you'll really enjoy those flavors. Now, geisha, at the time when it was just in Panama, and by the way, for some reason, the geisha out of Ethiopia just was never on this level. It just wasn't. There's just magic that was created when those beans from Ethiopia were planted in Panama. It could be that there was just a few plants in the geisha region that had this characteristic and the rest of them didn't. So it could have been that, and maybe nobody figured out which ones those were. Could have been one plant. So since we're talking about heirlooms, it could have been that genetic mutation with just 1, 2, or 3 plants. That could be one reason. Another reason is it could be something about the soil, and Panama has great volcanic soil, although they're not really known for the rest of their coffees. The rest of the coffees from Panama are largely, I hate to say this, but they're forgettable. They're good, but they're nothing I go out and strive to go and find. It's just, I haven't had incredible coffee from Panama. For the most part, I would say the same about Central America and South America, all the countries. But then you get these micro lots of something really cool. Like I just got a micro lot of some incredible, really well-grown coffee from Ecuador. Special stuff. That Parainema I talked about from Honduras is incredible. But the rest of the coffee from Honduras, forget it. It's prisoner coffee. And I apologize to everybody from Honduras who's now unsubscribed. But anyways, there's something magical about what happened in Panama with the geisha coffee, and it has not been reproduced elsewhere. So since then, and by the way, while it was still only in Panama, I saw it being sold for up to $2,000 a pound. Can you believe that? It's crazy. Since then, it's gone to other countries in Central America mostly. I've seen it, and South America. I've seen it go to Colombia, Costa Rica. I just saw some out of Peru. Guatemala, I get it pretty regularly. And what you really want is if you're getting it from a country other than Panama, and the best in the world is the Peterson farm in Panama. I mean, if you want the gold standard, that's the only place where you can get 96 cupping level geisha coffee is from that farm. Nobody else has been able to replicate that, not even in Panama. And you can go and get it from other countries. You can hit anywhere between 92 and 92.5 cupping level. That's pretty good in the coffee world. Remember, outside of that 96 from the Peterson farm, I've never seen anything above 93. And outside of the geisha cultivar, the only coffees I've seen as high as in the 90s, for that matter, have always been in Kenya or Ethiopia. Those are the two best coffee regions in the world. That's pretty much well accepted by all connoisseurs. If you say what two countries produce the best coffee in the world, they'll say Ethiopia first, Kenya second. After that, it's a big debate, right? And I'll save it for another video, but I know what my vote would be, and it's unconventional. But almost everybody comes up with something weird for number 3 and downwards. It's very debatable. The first two are not debatable by almost any connoisseur. So that's about the geisha coffee. It's a special coffee. It's one of those things that you have to try. I've seen it at local roasters. I'm based out of San Diego. I've seen it out of local roasters, and they sell it with reservations for $35 to $45 a cup. And then per pound, I've seen it around $400 to $450 a pound. And that's going to change the more it gets widespread, because the beans are out there, and countries are going to figure out what the secret sauce was that the Petersons had. But any country you get it from, they're going to be, in the 92s, most likely, from a cupping perspective. And that's a darn good cup of coffee. So it's one of those things you have to try just once at least. if you really like dark roast, if you like, charcoal coffee, whatever, you probably won't like this. Even if you like medium roast with heavy body or something, you probably won't like this. But the bottom line is you still got to try it, right? You still got to try it. So that's it on Geisha Coffee. I hope you found this useful. Please like, share, and comment. This is my first in what I hope will be an ongoing series to make coffee magical for all of you. It's a big part of my life, and I'm going to make it a big part of your life. Thank you all, and we'll talk to you next time.